Hello, Kingdom Couple.
Hey, Kingdom Couples, happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you all.
And we are excited it's Friday.
Yes.
We got Liv and Mommy over here.
Yes, I was just trying to make sure it was live on the right pages because we got so many pages going. But yes, we are here and we are excited. Y'all, it is episode 70.
Yeah.
Can you even believe it? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, we're excited. And today we're going to be discussing effective and healthy communication that supports restoration in your marriage. And this year, our key word.
Step back. It's right there. You're not in the camera now. You need to step back.
Our key word is restoration.
Yeah.
So, anything you want to say on the
Yeah,
restoration?
I just want to, encourage you all to continue making that a focus in your marriage where it's needed. And we encouraged you all at the beginning of the year to talk amongst yourselves as a married couple, talk about the areas where you need restoration. Just being honest with yourselves. You don't have to tell us, you don't have to put it in the chat. And hopefully you've done that, and since then continue to do work together. Because, we talked about this is a year of restoration for your marriage, but it's not going to happen without you both putting in the effort. Or if you're just one spouse right now that's fighting, you believe in God, that God is fighting with you, but you have to be putting in the effort and the work to see that. So we just want to encourage you that this is the year of restoration for your marriage. We believe in God with you, and we want to give you some healthy tips to help promote that in the area of communication. So we see Brother Ivan's on tonight. Good evening, Brother Ivan. Thank you for joining us. And yeah, that's all I have. That's an introduction.
Awesome. Yeah, good evening, Brother Ivan. Yeah, so we got nine key topics as to, what healthy communication is going to look like in your marriage and how that is going to promote restoration in your marriage. So let's get started. Number one, speak up on things that bother you when they bother you.
Emphasis on the when part.
Exactly. You want to go?
Yeah, sure. I think we could get in a habit of we bring up things, but sometimes it's a month later or weeks later, and the spouse that you're bringing the issue to could feel blindsided or even overwhelmed, depending on how many things you're bringing up by what you're bringing up. Or maybe they don't even remember. They're like, what? Yeah, you said this or you did this or you hurt my feelings, and they're like, they have no recollect of it because of the timing that is being brought up. So we want to encourage you that if something happened this morning, now granted, let's rightly divide it. If your spouse is, heading into work, that might not be the best time to do it. But our point here is don't wait weeks and months later to bring up the issue. So maybe they're at work, so it's not the best time to do it. But when they come home and they unwind, and maybe you want to wait until after dinner or whatever, don't let days and weeks go by. Or at least tell them, hey, there's something I want to talk to you about that happened today that's bothering me, or something I feel we need to discuss. When is a good time for us to sit down and discuss it? So by no means just he's at work or she's at work and you just bombarding this load of a conversation on them. But don't wait forever, because you can deal with the issue right at hand, right when it happens. And it could be water under the bridge. It's not something that needs to, fester and grow into another issue.
That's right. Yeah. And I think it's important to speak up on things that bother you. Obviously, when it bothers you, speak up on it because it's relevant. It's relevant to how you feel, how you are emotionally, how you are mentally. Your spouse is going to affect you like no other person will. Yep. So it's important to speak up on that right then and there.
Right.
So your spouse, is not perfect, right? They're human. They're going to say things that may offend you from time to time, do things that you may not like, or do it in a way that you may not like. that's okay as long as you talk about it. But talk about it in the moment, in the season that it happened in.
Right.
You don't want it to happen, 2-3 months down the road, a year down the road.
Right.
You're like, you did do this to me. It's like, I'm sorry, but why are you just now bringing it up?
Right. Exactly.
And another thing is you deserve to have your how you're feeling to be expressed in your marriage. As a wife, you deserve to bring that to your husband, whatever's bothering you.
Yeah.
As men, as husbands, I think we shy away from actually going forward and talking to our wives about what's bothering us as men. You deserve to have your feelings discussed and expressed. Hey, this is bothering me.
Exactly.
I didn't like when you did this. I didn't like what you said. I didn't like how whatever it is.
Right.
You deserve that same freedom in your marriage to express and discuss how you're feeling. But it's important to do it in the moment, in the season that it happened in. Like you said, maybe your spouse is going to work. Maybe that's not the best time to do it.
Right.
But, maybe you can send a little text. Hey, I would like to discuss something when you get home. Obviously, no one loves the we need to talk text or conversation. But, in the best way you can do it, try to let that be known.
Right, because the goal here is to move forward. So that's why you're bringing this issue up, because you don't want it to fester and grow into a bigger issue. You want it to be handled, dealt with, and you want to move on. So when we're talking about restoration, is oftentimes we find that couples, when they do start talking about the issues, it's a pile of issues. And your spouse can feel so overwhelmed because it's not just 1, 2 things. This issue has grown into another thing and another thing and another thing. And on top of all this, you want them to recall all these instances and hear and feel how you're feeling about it. But it's just so much time has passed. It's almost like, why bring it up now? So
it's almost unfair to the spouse who did something to you, to that offended you, to bring it up so far down the road.
Yeah. Because
you're both in a mental and emotional, in a season of your life where whatever they did, maybe they didn't mean to offend you. Maybe they were going through their own tough time.
Right.
Maybe you caught them at a time they were frustrated or whatever it is. Not excusing it. But when you bring it up at a relevant time, you can get a relevant answer, as opposed to, Naisha bringing something up to me, in December about something that happened in April. I'm like, honestly, I can't tell you too much, but I'm sorry, whatever I did. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to get a relevant answer if you bring it up so far down the road.
Yeah. It's really not fair to the spouse to...
And it's not fair to you
It's
either.
not fair to you because you're holding on and harboring it for so long. It's just really best to have the conversations when it happens, deal with it. Keep in mind the goal is to move forward. Let it be water under the bridge after it's discussed, rectify whatever needs to happen as a result of the conversation. But keep in mind the goal is to move forward, not to linger there.
Yep, absolutely. And a benefit of communicating an offense, issue, whatever it is, communicating it in general and communicating it when it happens is it handles the situation in the moment and it doesn't allow it to fester and grow. That's another thing. I don't think you may have touched on it, but when you don't talk about it, you leave it in your mind to grow. You leave it in your mind to, kind of have its own ecosystem, if you will. You allow the devil to kind of play with your thoughts and your mind and your emotions. So that's another reason you want to handle it right away, because you're like, well, why did she do that? Why did he do that? What did he mean by that? You know what I mean? Like, so that's a benefit to handling it right away. You don't allow it to grow into something that it doesn't need to grow into. It's like, for the fellas, if you cut your grass every 2 weeks, you know what to expect after 2 weeks. But if you wait 3 months, that's an entirely different job trying to cut your grass after 3 months.
Yeah.
Just don't do it.
That's a good point. Nope, I'm done with point 1.
All right.
Good.
Point 2, balance speaking up with not being nitpicking.
Yep. Go ahead.
There we go. All right. So this is important because although we want to, be able to express how we feel when we feel in the moment, it's also important not to, overwhelm your spouse with things that are honestly they're not that important. Okay, just determine within yourself. Is this something that I really need to bring to my spouse, or is this something that I could just go pray about, right?
Or just let go. It's not that big,
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, anything?
No, I think it kind of ties into the first one, honestly.
Yeah.
Just analyze it. It happened today. You're feeling these emotions today. Analyze it. It's something you can just let go and forgive. I was reading a scripture this week that says, love covers a multitude of sins. And I like to think of that in terms of marriages, as a whole. But what that means is, it doesn't excuse sin. That's not what the scripture is saying. But basically, when you have a great amount of love for someone, you're not going to be nitpicky on every little thing that they do. Their intentions are not to hurt you when they did that or said that. So there's some things you can literally just let go. You can just let it go and just, charge it to their head and not their heart, as, so to speak, as people say, and move on. So, if it happened, think about it. Is this something I can just let go? Or is it really bothering me and I really need to talk to my spouse about it? And if you decide it's something you can let go, you gotta be confident that you can let it go. And it's not gonna be one of those things that you let go in a moment, but comes up 3 months from now, 5 months from now, like we were just talking about. So I think it speaks for itself. But
yeah, once again, you're not overwhelming your spouse,
right?
With
every little thing that comes up every day, because some things we need to just let go.
Exactly. Maybe they were in a rush going to work or getting ready, doing something, and they knocked your toothbrush over, right? And they didn't pick it up. Is this something they really gotta bother your spouse about? Yeah. 3, watch your tone when you are speaking to your spouse.
Yeah.
This is something we've touched on a number of times.
Yep.
And it's just basic respect, right?
Yeah.
For your spouse. Whether you're talking to your husband or you're talking to your wife, you don't want to talk to them in any type of way. And, really talking, yelling at them, talking to them in a condescending manner, sarcasm. Some of us are fluent in sarcasm. You just want to really watch how you're talking with your spouse and what kind of tonality you're using with your spouse. Because this just shows basic respect for your spouse, the person that you love, the person that you're married to. And, it shows you in a better light.
Yeah. I think you said that perfectly. I don't have anything to add to that one.
Awesome. Yeah, and this is just being respectful. It shows that you care about them, that you love them, and that you respect them overall. Yeah. Right? It's really basic. It's really simple. It's nothing earth-shattering. Number 4. This kind of ties into number 2, actually. Question if this is really an issue.
That's the nitpicky one.
Exactly. Yeah. Is this really an issue with your spouse, or is this really an issue that you got
work that you need to do?
Exactly. Is this something you can handle on your own? Sometimes we do need to take a step back and say, all right, Lord,
do a work in me.
Do a work in me. Am I tripping? You're like, what's going on? Yeah. You know what I mean? Sometimes you got nothing to do with your spouse.
Right. Everything bothers me, Lord. Please help me to just relax and be in peace and not be so anxious or not be so easily offended. I think that's a prayer we need to pray because, yes, there are times where, that's why we're talking about this. Things happen, things are said, things are done in a marriage that need to be discussed. That spouse needs to be made aware of it. They need to apologize. Reconciliation needs to happen, but not on every little thing. So there are some things where it's like, why were you offended by that? And that's something you can work out in your time with the Lord, where Lord can dig deeper and say, that's actually just a old childhood wound there that your spouse hits often that really has nothing to do with them. So that's something you and God can work on, and healing can take place where you're not being constantly offended by every little thing, because again, your spouse is not your enemy. I doubt very seriously that your spouse is waking up looking for ways to offend you. Yes, it happens because, like my husband said earlier, the closest person to you is your spouse. So they have more opportunities to offend you, to hurt your feelings and things like that. But, I don't know many spouses that are waking up like, how can I offend my husband today? How can I just get on his nerves? Like, that's not the case. So when it does happen, you're on the same team. Bring it up if it needs to be brought up, or let it go, or take it to the Lord and let the Lord dig deeper as to why you're being constantly offended, so often.
Yeah, I mean, what you said, it was great. I don't necessarily want to bury it with anything. I don't think it's going to, anything I can say could top that. But this is an added benefit because it allows you to choose your battles.
Yes, pick your battles. Pick your battles. Not everything is a battle. You turning your house into World War III because, I don't know. Just the shoes wasn't left, where you ask your spouse to leave the shoes. You know what I'm saying? And, I'm going to give you a tip. I read this a few months ago, and it really changed my life. It was like, this is a marriage tip. They said, they said a lot of spouses are arguing over like little stuff. What really comes down to like roommate issues. They was like, a lot of women, they get up in arms because the husband doesn't put the toilet seat down. Or, you know what I mean? Something is really just like maintenance things around the house. And they said, some of the best marriage advice they received, and it had changed their marriage and their life, was don't turn roommate issues into marriage issues. That was like, whoa, how many arguments or things don't even need to be said if you just like, it's water on the bridge. I don't even got to bring it up. They was like, yeah, maybe you did tell your spouse to put the toilet seat down a million times, but is it really going to hurt you to just go ahead and put it down and keep moving on? And you think about it, be like, no, the socks are on the floor. Okay, pick up the socks. You know what I'm saying? Like, why am I going to turn my house into World War III over a roommate? What's really like a roommate issue? It's not really a marriage issue. But we're turning in like small things into marriage issues for no reason. So I'm just throwing that tip out there because I read it some months ago and I thought it was like, wow, that's a really good point.
There you go. Bonus tip right here. Number 5, communicate to your spouse things they are doing well.
This is important.
Yeah, we're talking about, restoration and what you can do things that involve communication. But sometimes you just need to communicate what your spouse is doing really good, okay? Yeah. And sometimes it's just not about you. Sometimes it's about your spouse and telling them what they're doing well, what you appreciate about them, and kind of letting them have their flowers.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, I think most people can easily tell you what you're doing wrong. I think it's just in our nature. But, we got to kind of force ourselves sometimes to say nice things or to say thank you, to say this or to say that. But we thrive off that, Think about how you feel. Even if the conversation needs to happen, your spouse brings something to your attention that you're doing that's affecting the family or that's offending them or hurting them. You appreciate them for bringing it up, but it doesn't make you feel all like ooey gooey inside. It doesn't make you feel like, yes, I'm in a great wife. No, it makes you feel like, I failed my husband in that area. I let him down, or I let the family down. And they're not trying to put you down. It's just something that you all needed to talk about. They can offer reassurance at the end of the conversation, but ultimately it's not a conversation that's conducive to making you feel encouraged. On the other hand, if you are, praising your spouse and thanking them for what they are doing well, and maybe you need to write down the things that they are doing well. Maybe you need to write it down, and it has to be something. It has to be something. There could be 99 things they doing wrong, but is it one thing you can say thank you about? Is it 2 things you can say, you know what, honey, you do this really, really well. Like the way you take that trash out every week. I'm not trying to be funny. I'm just saying it gotta be something. It's on point. I never have to ask you. You always make sure it's out there. You bring the bins back. Thank you for that. You know what? You always shovel the snow. Every time it snows. There has to be something, is my point. So let's capitalize on the good, because what that then does is encourages your spouse to keep doing it. They're like, oh, she taking notice of me. He's taking notice of me when I was just doing my job, but thank you. And that makes you feel good inside, that you feel like, you know, your efforts are being noticed and appreciated by your spouse. Jessica's on. Good evening, Jessica.
Good evening, Jess.
Yeah, so that's what I have on that point.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, imagine, like, it's never a great feeling when your spouse comes to you and says, yeah, you made me feel bad. You made me feel some type of way. Mm-hmm. It's never a great feeling, but sometimes it just needs to be said, right?
Right,
it needs to
right.
be, you know, communicated. So imagine how good it feels to be told you're doing something well, you're doing something good. I see you, I appreciate you.
You're doing a great job. Like if your spouse, you know, if your spouse cooks dinner, whether it's the man or the woman, thank them for that. Even if it's not every night, if it's not every week, you know what? This meal was amazing. Thank you so much for cooking tonight. That was one less thing I had to do. Yep. You know, thank you for cleaning the dishes. Maybe you cooked and they cleaned the dishes. There is something. I mean, if we really think about it, there's a lot that our spouse does well, but we are prone to focus on what they're not doing well. And when we find something they're not doing well, it doesn't motivate us to tell them what they, you know, when we find something they're not doing well, it doesn't motivate us to tell them what they are doing well, but you need to capitalize on that. And that will encourage them to keep going forward and keep striving to be the best spouse that they can be for you.
That's right. And I mean, a great benefit to all of this is it builds your spouse up.
It builds them up.
Okay. It doesn't, you know, necessarily tear them down.
Yeah.
And if you're building your spouse up, I promise you, you're going to have a better spouse and you're going to be happier.
Yes.
So this is your cue, your sign to go give your spouse a compliment.
Yes. Give them a couple. Like, write a list and say, like, what you're doing well.
Yep.
I want to show them the gift I got for you. Can I show them the gift I got for you?
Yeah, sure.
All right, go ahead. You can keep going. I'll go grab it.
Okay. So, number 6, if they have grown in communication, acknowledge that growth. I think there's nothing worse than having put so much work into something and you don't get acknowledged for it. Like imagine like back in school, right? Or even on your job, you really put the effort in, you really put the time in, and you're like, oh, this is going to be great. This is going to be the best project. Nobody else is going to top mine. And say that's the truth. But your manager, your teacher, whoever, your professor, they don't acknowledge what you did well and what you put the effort in. So imagine your spouse is doing everything they need to do to grow in a certain area and you never acknowledge it. That can be very deflating for the spouse that's actually putting in the work, putting in the time, putting in the effort.
Right.
Because maybe you accuse them. You don't put in the effort. You don't put in the time. You don't put in this and that. But they actually did, and you don't reward that.
Yeah.
That is not a good thing. Everybody has a job to do. Even if the job of one spouse is to actually come up in a certain area, it is then your job to reinforce and to positively reaffirm and congratulate them on the growth they have actually attained.
Yeah, just acknowledge it. You know, especially we're talking about an area of communication specifically. Like this can be applied to any area, but if your spouse, you know, when you first met them, when y'all first got married or dating, whatever, they weren't great in communication, but you've seen a little bit of growth, even the smallest faint of growth. Tell them like, you know, honey, I know in the past you would never tell me what's bothering you, and I noticed lately. You know, turn into a positive. They came and told you something that's bothering them. Look at the growth in it. It's like, you know, I know it was hard for you to open up, or it's been hard for you. So thank you for opening up and letting me know something that's bothering you, because I see growth in that in you. You know, that's going to encourage them to continue, because one big complaint of women about men is they don't open up. They don't tell us anything. They don't share their feelings. And, you know, women, we're all like emotions. Share, talk to me, tell me what you want. So when they do, praise them for even that. Just say thank you. You know, it was a tough conversation, but I do see growth in you in the area of communication. And, you know, I just want to encourage you to keep doing it, because I want to know what's bothering you. I want to hear about it. I don't want you to keep it bottled in. Because, you know, as women, we can get so focused on our feelings and our emotions. And just because the men don't express it as much doesn't mean they have it. A lot of times they just keep it bottled in, which isn't healthy, and it's not healthy for the marriage. So encourage them to continue to do that and praise them when they do.
That's right. And a benefit of this is it's always good to acknowledge growth.
Yeah, even the smallest amount.
Your spouse is never going to reprimand you for acknowledging growth in them. They might feel a little embarrassed. They may not know how to respond. But I promise you, deep down somewhere,
they're going to be like,
they're like, yes, I did good.
I did something.
Number 7, ask direct questions. Don't assume can turn into issues that may not be there. So we always want to be direct. We always want to have clarity and give clarity in whatever we are feeling at that moment. So, try to be as respectful as possible. Try not to undermine your spouse, put your spouse down, but make sure whatever you are communicating, make sure you articulate it in a clear, direct way. That way your spouse knows exactly what you're talking about and when you're talking about it.
Yeah, don't assume, assuming stuff that your spouse is thinking things or feeling things or doing things. It's never really good for you. It's not good for the marriage, but it's really not, because you're like bottling this stuff up here. And the devil could just have a field day with it, and it may or may not be any truth to it. Reactions are now enabled. Okay. It was a note that popped up. So you're just assuming it at this point. And if it's bothering you like that, just ask a direct question. Don't beat around the bush. Don't drop hints and stuff. Ladies, we can get caught up in that. Just ask them like, I'm thinking this. I just want to get clarity. Is this true? Is this, validate if this is how I'm feeling? Is it any truth to it or anything like that? Ask a direct question, but don't assume, because, you assuming it just going on. And then when you finally ask about it, half the time there's no truth or no weight to what you were assuming. Sometimes there is. And even still, that's why you need to ask the question to get clarity. So
that's right. It gives clarity to your spouse and allows you to get the best clarity as possible after that. Number 8.
We got 2 more, 8 and 9.
Validate your spouse's feelings when they speak up.
Yeah, I think we touched on it a little bit already, but don't make them feel bad for bringing the issue up, because you don't want them to retreat and start to draw up and feel like, I can't talk to you. I can't come to you. You are supposed to be that person that they feel confident to come and talk to about anything. Do not close that off in them or make them feel like they can't, because when they come to you, you make them feel like they're crazy. They don't know what they're talking about. That shouldn't be an issue for you. You crying over that. That's not what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to validate their feeling. Even if you think it is the most, that's something that would never bother you in a million years. Well, guess what? It bothers your spouse. So validate those feelings that they have. When they come to you and say, you know what? I'm sorry. I didn't. I'm kind of getting into the last one. The number 9 was apologizing. But, that goes into validating their feelings. Give them reassurance. I didn't mean to do that. I'm sorry. You're right. I hear you. Those are the things that you should be doing to validate your spouse's feeling. Let them know that they are heard, that you appreciate them speaking up, that you never want them to close those feelings up in them and feel like they can't come and talk to you. That's very important. That is very, very important. And speaking from a woman's perspective, you can really close a woman, you can really close her off emotionally and have her just, say, I'm not saying nothing. I'm not even just going to talk to you at all. And where does the silent treatment get you? Nowhere. Where does it get the marriage? Nowhere. So you don't want that to happen. So when they come to you, listen, put the phone to the side, turn the TV off. I'm giving you my undivided attention because this is important to me. If it's bothering you, I want to hear about it. Let's get to the bottom of it and let's have resolution.
Yeah, it's good to reinforce what your spouse is feeling, which is, just good across the board, obviously. Mm-hmm. And as you touched on, point 9, apologizing to your spouse.
Yes.
This, I think it shows humility,
yeah.
right? It shows that you're not too great, too proud, too prideful to say, hey, I'm sorry, I messed up, got it wrong. So always be open to apologizing, whatever it might be.
Yeah, and it allows a constant flow of forgiveness to take place quicker. We're supposed to forgive regardless if our spouse apologizes or not, but it allows that to happen quicker because, a lot of times if the apologizing doesn't happen, the spouse goes on feeling like this person doesn't care. Again, I'm not going to talk to them about it anymore. They didn't even care to apologize. They didn't care to acknowledge that I was hurt by that. And, it just goes on into this vicious cycle that doesn't need to happen. But a lot of times people soften. As soon as you apologize and it's heartfelt, don't throw a sorry, I'm sorry, and just go. Like, you're not sorry. You could tell in your tone, like we talked about tonality, you could tell how you said it. Be genuine. Let them know their feelings matter. You apologize for it and that you want to move forward. And you're going to try your best not to offend them in that area again,
Yeah.
So.
Awesome.
So what I wanted to show you all was, we saying there's always something you can praise your spouse on. So this was a gift. I'm not going to open up the pages, but this is a gift that I got my husband for Valentine's Day. I'm pretty sure it was. And it was right on Amazon, just a blank book that says Reasons I Love You. And what I do in here, I just literally write down when he does things. It's just like a living book and journal of things that I appreciate, I love, and I value that he's done for me or our family. And so he can go in at any time and just read it, and I continue to add things, whenever, no rhyme or reason. Like sometimes I'm adding a couple things a day, sometimes I'm adding one thing a week, just, when it comes to my heart, so that, he always reminds himself, and I'm reminding myself that he is doing things well in this marriage and for our family. Because again, we can get caught up on what's not happening, but it reminds me and reminds him that I'm taking notice of the things that he's doing. So this is a good idea for any spouse, man or woman. And I even went back. I didn't start just like Valentine. I went back and just tried to remember all these things over the years, and it was fun to go back. It really was. It was like, wow, he's done some cool things. Like I wrote down some date nights that he did that I really loved and appreciated and was memorable. Whatever it is, whatever it could mean to you, this was really inexpensive on Amazon, and you can make it something very special for your spouse. Just an idea.
Awesome. Yep. No, that was pretty cool. I was, it was nice when she's showing me that. So I got to look in it again from time to time and see what she's writing about me.
Yeah.
But guys, that was our 9 points to effective and healthy communication that supports restoration in your marriage.
Yep.
Let us know what points you took away, what you felt and what's been your experience with communication, and how does marriage look like in 2024 for restoration for you. So
we're going to be signing out because Olivia has rung our bell.
Yep.
But we love you guys. We hope you have a blessed night and evening, and we'll see you next month on Marriage Talk for episode 71. Bye.